At 17, my life came to a screeching halt. There was no accident or illness, just a single sentence that came from the mouth of Anne, my adopted sister. We were in the middle of a typical family dinner, with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins filling the house with laughter and the aroma of the roast beef my father was proudly preparing. My parents always loved appearances. That night, under the bright lights of the dining room, they boasted about how close we were. Anne, who came into our lives at 8 because my parents longed for a daughter, had always been the perfect piece of that puzzle. Quiet, polite, shy. I looked after her, helped her with her homework, and defended her from the bullies at school. Never, not for a second, did I see her as anything other than my own flesh and blood. That night, however, Anne stood up from the table, her hands trembling and her voice breaking. "Jackson made me," she blurted out. The silence that followed was so heavy the ticking of the clock sounded like an explosion. Before I could process her words, she added the final blow. "I'm pregnant." I didn't get a chance to speak. My father, blinded by rage, threw a punch that sent me sprawling to the ground, my ears ringing and the metallic taste of blood filling my mouth. My mother screamed as if someone had died, my brother Jake called me disgusting, and my aunt hugged Anne, whispering that she was safe now. My vows of innocence fell on deaf ears. I was arrested on my own porch in front of my entire family and neighbors. At the police station, the officers treated me with utter contempt, interrogating me about timelines that didn't exist. But the reality was cold. There was no evidence, no cell phone records, nothing but the accusation of a teenage girl. At dawn, they released me for lack of evidence, but the damage was already irreversible. When I got home, I found all my belongings piled on the lawn. My father was standing in the doorway, impassive. "You're not my son anymore," he said with a coldness that hurt more than his blows. Even Emma, my girlfriend of a year who swore she knew me better than anyone, called to say she couldn't see me again if she didn't want her parents to call the police. In less than 12 hours, I went from being a young man with a future to a complete outcast. Homeless, and with only $200 in my wallet, I drove my old car until it ran out of gas in a town called Maplewood. I was haggard, my face bruised, and my clothes dirty when I saw a wanted sign at a diner. Andy, the owner, a gruff but kind-hearted man, didn't ask any questions. He gave me the job as a dishwasher in a small room upstairs. 4 years, that diner was my world. I worked double shifts, saved every penny, and immersed myself in solitude, while in my old town, my name became synonymous with monster. I didn't know what had happened to Anne's supposed baby, nor did I care. My only goal was to survive in the shadow of a lie. 10 years later, the past came knocking in the most unexpected way. A video on social media went viral, and now an adult woman appeared crying in front of a camera confessing the truth. It turns out that the pregnancy was never mine, but rather that of a boy from her school who had threatened her. Driven by fear and the desperation of not wanting to betray the image of perfect daughter in my parents' eyes, she decided to point the finger at me, knowing that I had always protected her and that, in her twisted mind, I would be the only one strong enough to bear the guilt without her losing her place in the family. The truth came to light when the real father, tormented by guilt after a decade, decided to speak out. Shortly after the video went public, my parents and my brother Jake showed up at the diner. They were aged, their eyes swollen from crying, begging for forgiveness at my door. They offered me money, talked about making up for lost time, and how families should always stick together. I stared at them, remembering the night they left me bleeding on the floor and the cold back of the police car. I remembered Andy, who gave me a chance when they'd thrown me away. I didn't feel hatred, just a deep emptiness. "You're not my family," I said calmly. "My family died 10 years ago." I closed the door, and for the first time in a decade, I felt like I could finally breathe.